Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey alongside Chris Ballas and Anthony Broom on Thursday, March 6th, as we march towards a little bit better weather here in the coming days. March Madness around the corner. We'll be in Indy a week from now for the Big Ten tournament. We are brought to you today by the 2025 official Michigan Jordan Fly Elite Football. You can get yours today at biggameusa.com/Wolverines. Anthony's holding his up there on the screen. There's the graphic as well. So we'll talk more about them later on in the show. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you can head to the Wolverine.com right now for all your Michigan football, basketball, and recruiting news. Use the promo code UM1 for 2 months of premium access for just $1. We're 1 week away from the Big Ten tournament. Michigan's got a massive game, could be higher implications than even right now on Sunday at Michigan State. If the Spartans lose tonight, at Iowa, then that game on Sunday will be for a share of the Big Ten championship. Lots going on. One of the best times of the year in sports, fellas. How's it going?
I'd be better, man, if this team were playing better, right? It's kind of put a damper on things just because the expectations have gone down so dramatically in the last few weeks here with the way this Michigan team is playing. So somebody posted some of the numbers since the Michigan State game, and it's unbelievable. Offensive efficiency in the 200s, defensive efficiency still okay. 3-point efficiency, I think, is 350th. How many teams are there? Like 360 something, I believe it is. So
363.
That's insane. It's terrible, and it makes you wonder if this team has any life whatsoever going into the tourney. So it's disappointing. Now we have seen teams turn it around on a dime, right? But this team is flawed, and it seems like every team is really dialed into what they do well and making sure that their flaws are on display when they play them. So still thrilled with the way the season has gone for the most part, exceeded all expectations, but really hope that they can get their mojo back a little bit here for the postseason.
But at least it's almost your birthday. So
is it? I don't know.
I think so, right?
Yeah, I don't talk about those things. My personal life, Clay. Can we just move on? See. It's like when people call you too hot or something like that. You know, it just gets a little.
That is annoying. Yeah,
I guess it gets a little bit too close to home.
That's never happened on this show.
Well, just once. All right, let's continue.
Yeah, I don't know how to follow that up.
No, you don't.
This team right now is just they're in a funk, and it's the thing that's the starkest drop off for me is just how much they've fallen off offensively. Really, even since just that Nebraska game. I mean, they were still kind of in or around the top 25 on KenPom offensively. In the last week alone, I mean, they're all the way down to 49th after last night's game against Maryland. So they don't have confidence right now, and they haven't been able to push the right buttons to get it back. And even in that Maryland game, you see spurts. You know, they went on an 8-0 run in a 1 minute span, and you know, you see these spurts and these glimpses of, okay, maybe they've strung a few possessions here and they've got it back. And then, you know, you come out of the locker room in the second half and you're trying to make a push, and Danny Wolf turns the ball over. I think it was 4 times in 5 or 6 possessions. It was, and I'm not just singling him out. It's just they, for whatever reason right now, it's like the Dutch boy sticking his finger in a dam, you know, and then a spout of water comes out somewhere else. So you plug that hole and a spot of water comes out somewhere else. They just can't get ahead of it right now. And I don't know if it's just a matter of fighting through it through a rough stretch. I think a lot of the things that we've seen them do not as well this last week, 2 weeks have kind of been building to that being an issue all year, and they've skated by on a lot of it. But, you know, when the difference right now, you know, when the intensity cranked up with that Michigan State game, Michigan State has kind of surged since then, and Michigan has fallen off big time. So I don't know if it's, and there's all these takes of, did you guys miscalculate how you were built for the Big Ten? And there's all these like wide ranging reasons that people want to place on it. They're just not playing good basketball, and they're not confident right now. If we didn't have a whole first half of the season to go back on knowing what this team could be, it would be a lot easier for me to say, like, oh, well, they're just, it's year one. They're just going through a rough patch right now. To me, it's they got to get their mojo back, and I don't know what the road to that is. Maybe it's just one of those games where the shot, you just rain hellfire from above from 3-point line, and that gets everyone going. But man, oh man, they are going through it right now. Something fierce.
I think it is the confidence, guys. When you look at them, Trey Donaldson doesn't want the ball. Roddy Gale hit like 5 or 10 in a row from the corner in warm-ups, and then he airballs one by 3 feet when he gets into a game. Guys don't want to shoot the ball. Guys don't want the ball. They're deferring to Danny Wolf way too much. And when you've got a guy that's 7 feet tall, physically it's going to wear on him. Mentally, it's eventually going to wear on him. It's really him and Vlad, and then every now and then somebody else makes a shot, right? Is kind of how it feels. So I give them credit for continuing to play hard defensively, but the confidence just isn't there. And it is hard to turn that back on once you lose it.
Well, the question was, how's it going? And
great. How are you?
Here we are. Let's just go. We were going to start with Michigan football, but let's just stick with Michigan, Maryland. And then we'll get to Wink Martindale's comments a little bit later. Just that was your last opportunity at home in front of your fans to play well, to kind of get back on track after hitting your rough patch, and maybe you're just in the middle of it still, and you'll come out the other end of it at some point. I mean, I saw a tweet yesterday about, the turnovers down the stretch and all this stuff that happened. You lose to Maryland, and the tweet ends at the 10th line of the tweet. It says, season's over. It's like, the season is absolutely not over. It's nowhere near over. You have a bunch of opportunities, including Sunday, but postseason opportunities, 2 different tournaments you're going to be playing in. I guess it makes it more exciting come March Madness, that some people forget that the unexpected can and will happen. So then maybe they're a little more surprised and they have more fun watching it. But the unexpected can and will happen. Michigan could be one of the teams that creates some of that chaos. And they'll still be a relatively high seed in the tournament. And that will be determined based on how they play here to cap off the regular season and in Indianapolis for the Big Ten tournament. But the turnovers were just the biggest story of this game. They came on a bunch of different poor passes, 12 of them. 12 of the 16 were live ball turnovers. They seemed just about all of them avoidable. There are some that you're going to have if you throw it into Vlad Golden and there's, a crowd around him. And once in a while, a big guy like that's going to turn the ball over. But to have that many of them on passes like that were tough. And the weird thing is Danny Wolf, all the good things he did were unbelievable in this game, but he undid a lot of it by some of the bad turnovers and decisions that he made. Trey Donaldson had some terrible decisions as well, even though he hit some key shots too. It's tough to reconcile. But when you have a game where you have 3 stretches of 3+ turnovers in a row and then have 8 empty possessions in a row after cutting it to 2 with about 6 minutes to play in this game, you're not going to win, even when you played, I thought, very good defense in the half court all game. Maryland only scored 1 point per possession last night, and that included all the run-out opportunities and transition opportunities they had with their 21 points off of turnovers. So that's the problem that popped up, like you said, Anthony, like those things that keep popping up. That was the one last night. They rebounded better, as you would expect they would against that opponent. But the turnovers were absolutely killer, and they don't have a margin to turn it over, as Dusty May said.
And let's be clear on these turnovers. The one at the top, excuse me, where Vlad Golden hands the ball essentially to the Maryland kid who goes down and scores. That's inexcusable. Excuse me, it's complete and total panic, and that just cannot happen. These are things where, to me, it's only going to get better if you get the confidence back, right? These are unforced turnovers. These are turnovers that should absolutely not happen, where if you eliminate 3 of them last night, you're going to overtime, guys. And there were probably 10 of them. You can't win that way. You can do everything else right, and you can do things to keep you in games, but you cannot win that way. And I don't know what you do to fix it at this point. It seemed like they were making progress on it, but it is absolutely an epidemic. These guys are not trusting each other anymore. When it comes to offense, they need more shooters, obviously. They need to get Sam Walters back, if nothing else, just to spread the floor a little bit, right? Stand him in a corner where they can't leave him alone. Reuben Jones needs to be healthier because Roddy Gale is not the answer. He's still got one three-pointer in 2025, and that was in a blowout loss at Purdue. He has not had a meaningful three-pointer this entire year when you talk about calendar years. So this is a flawed basketball team. They need some guys. Somehow they need a sports psychologist or something to come in and talk to these guys and get them focused and back to what they were, because we've seen that they are better than this. Now, people talking about water finding its level, that's not the case with this team. Something is seriously wrong. They've got to get at least some of their mojo back here before they go into the Big Ten tournament. I will say this, there's no way they're going to win at Michigan State, Clay. Whatever the spread is, fans take Michigan State with the points. Michigan State's going to win that game going away on Sunday. They will have already clinched a Big Ten title, and they will probably have unfurled the banner right before the game, just to rub it in a little bit and to twist it. So twist the knife. So that's where I am with this squad. The only hope that I see is they get a good matchup in the Big Ten tournament, maybe play well and get a little bit of momentum going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I have similar thoughts about how Sunday might go. I will say, when you get to the Big Ten tournament, all it takes is just that one game to get your confidence back. And maybe, I mean, that game could be Sunday too. And Clay wrote it recently where you're not playing well until you are, and it can flip on a dime like that this time of year. And, you get to the Big Ten tournament, let's say you win a game, and then you're feeling good. You got to win, and you're getting right back on the horse the next day. And in their case, the next day would be, you win that game, you're playing on Sunday. So for me, I mean, it's too much to overcome right now in terms of, I mean, I know Roddy Gale has not brought much, if anything, offensively. Reuben Jones has been a guy too. I mean, I've been, he does some good things out there energy wise, and they certainly need him back and at full health. But he, you flip through his his college stats, and he's been a guy, even though I get it was at North Texas, he's been a guy that shot the ball well and played a lot better basketball than he has this year. And, the discouraging thing is that these guys he and Roddy Gale, it's not like it's been a slump for a couple games or a couple weeks. This has mostly been a season-long thing. And for Roddy, a little bit less long, because it seems like really once he dealt with that ankle injury, he's just never really been able to come back effectively from that. He's pressing in games. There's no rhyme or reason to much of anything he does out there. So, you could say it's a flawed roster, and it is. At the same time, big pieces of this roster that you put together with those two guys and then Sam Walters being out, it's an incomplete roster because you're not getting anything from a few of them. And, one guy has been out for a couple of weeks now, and, and then you can't overcome that in addition to when Trey Donaldson doesn't play well, in addition to when Namari Burnett doesn't play well. So not only have not all the pieces worked well in unison, a lot of the time, you're really just not. We get tweets, we get game thread, takes of this guy's unplayable. You got to sit him on the bench. And at this point, it's like, for who? I mean, okay, rah. That's great that the freshman came in the other night in a blowout and gave you a couple good minutes, but they're not ready. And if they were, that'd be a button they'd be pressing right now to try and spark something. So to me, it's just the only way out of the funk right now is through it. It's just a matter of how many games will they have an opportunity to kind of get through it at this point?
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, the coaching staff clearly agrees on the Roddy Gale thing and played a season low in minutes last night, wasn't in foul trouble. LJ Kaysen plays one of his higher minute totals. So you're getting that. The problem is with Kaysen, well, there are a couple. The defense hasn't been great. He missed some box outs last night, as he has a lot of the time when he's been in the game this year. And he's very confident on offense, and I like that. The shots just aren't going. I think he's only made a couple threes. I mean, the big one at Nebraska was huge, but a couple threes in Big Ten play. And, you need more out of that too. If you're going to push that button and sacrifice some on the defensive end and in rebounding, it's unfortunate that it hasn't come together for him. I mean, Justin Pippen played 5 minutes last night, just a first half shift. and didn't take a shot, didn't record a stat other than one steal. And 9 seconds later, Michigan ended up turning the ball over again. Namari Burnett with the turnover right after Pippen's steal. So like those guys just haven't added the impact. Now I will say Reuben Jones getting back and playing, 28 to 32 minutes a game will be a pretty significant development, I think, for this team. He hasn't been able to do that since he's come back, and then he missed 2 games prior to that. And they were, I thought things were moving pretty well when he was in the game and playing a lot of minutes. And then he unfortunately got sick, and Michigan's had some untimely, bumps and bruises, guys with illnesses, things like that throughout this season. It's been kind of going around college basketball, but it would be nice to get him back and ready to go, full go. You did shoot a little better from 3 last night on low volume, though, 7 of 20, 35%. First time they've hit 35% since February 1st at Rutgers. Danny Wolf hit a couple, especially the step back. That was a tough one. Trey Donaldson hit a couple. Cheddar with 1, Namari Burnett with 2, but it doesn't feel like those, it's just 21 points. You miss one of those and you're back in the not as good percentage that you've kind of been at for a while. So I don't necessarily think that is fixed right now. The only thing that I was encouraged by overall was just the defense, especially on the interior, to take away their best player, Derek Queen. But then the guards hit threes at the perfect times. A couple of those were on Roddy Gale, but yeah, anything else from this game just feels like a massive missed opportunity.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And the first half, it was just like pulling teeth, right? It was not fun to watch. You could tell that the crowd was just like stunned. And I give the crowd credit; they came alive in the second half, and they tried to will them. And even without the students there, it got pretty loud in there. But and for a while they responded, but you can't have the boneheaded mistakes. They cut it to 2, and then Trey Donaldson gets caught down low and throws the ball to the other side of the court. Those are the things that can't happen from your point guard. It's just, again, the maddening. How many times did I say that word sitting next to you last night, Clay? Too often. This is maddening. It was ridiculous. So I may have cussed a few times on press row. I'm glad I haven't gotten thrown out yet. We're so high that nobody can hear me, really.
Event staff guy Don would have tossed you right out of there.
Don would not. Don would have agreed with me. I love Don, by the way. And but it's tough to watch, guys, when they're playing basketball like that. And so we'll see. But here's the thing. If they had played like this early in the year, and then you get the first half of the year now where they're beating USC on the road, UCLA, we would have a different taste in our mouths about this team, right? We'd be saying, wow, they're really improving, when maybe just part of it's just matchups and part of it's confidence. But when you play like this at this point in the year, Dusty May talked about, well, yeah, the bumps in the schedule usually come at a point where you're playing really much better teams. They've lost 3 games at home, guys, in the last, 5-6 games. So that's a really bad sign.
They are a very good team, though, I will say.
Right now. Yeah, they are. I thought you said they aren't a very good team. Michigan's not a very good team right now, but they are to very good teams. At the same time, you got to at least win one of those games.
I agree.
I would totally agree. I just, to kind of wrap it all up, I just feel like their biggest issue right now, and again, I get it, there are some things they're deficient in from a roster perspective, but their biggest issue right now, and the quickest fix, is going to come from within. It's from these guys pulling themselves back up, realizing there's still a lot to play for. There has been a lot to play for, even if the stakes aren't what they were maybe going to be for this game Sunday. They have to get themselves rolling, and they should know that they're much better than this. And I don't know what buttons you press, I don't know what strings you pull to get back, but the sum right now is not adding up to what I think are still pretty quality parts on this team. So time to figure it out. They got to find it. And these aren't freshmen and sophomores. These are guys that have won a lot of basketball games with different programs and at different roles. But these are veteran guys who should be able to kind of snap back into focus. And
they've been dealing with injury, illness, haven't had many days off. That was game 5 in 12 days, 12-day span. They finally get 3 days here before heading to East Lansing, short road trip to Michigan State. We'll preview that here in just a second. But before we have to talk about The best thing, Anthony's got a great office there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see behind. The best thing in that office is the 2025 official Michigan Jordan Fly Elite football that just dropped. He's going to be holding it right now. There it is. For the first time ever, Jordan Brand's signature innovation, performance, and swagger are hitting the turf in the Big House. This is the official game ball of the Wolverines, and you will see it in action all season long as Michigan builds on its championship legacy. They're simply known as 2023 national champions. I added that part in. The football is designed for precision, control, and game-changing performance. Here's what makes it special. Signature Maze, Jumpman, and Block M logos, iconic symbols of innovation and performance. It's engineered to Michigan's quarterback specs, designed with input and guidance from Wolverines coaches and players. As we know, former Michigan quarterbacks also like to have their footballs very specific. Pebbled lace, a visible colorized maze, lace reinforcement flap, and overlay stripe technology for better optimal off-lace control, handcrafted in the USA by Big Game Football Factory. Every ball comes with a certificate of authenticity. This isn't just a football. Anthony, is that just a football that you're holding?
No, it's
that's a piece of Michigan history right there.
Were you implying, by the way, that it's easy to deflate, Clay?
No, but in the Netflix roast, the Brady roast, he goes, "Yeah, I effing did it."
Did he say that?
I love that. Yeah,
that's great.
He said, "Why didn't you just ask me?"
I can neither confirm nor deny that we may have known a manager at Michigan who had something to say about that as well. So, yep.
But this ball that Anthony's holding, which isn't just a football, piece of Michigan history, is perfect for true Michigan fans to display it or give it as a gift. Be among the first to own it. Snag yours today at biggameusa.com/Wolverines. Got to use that exact URL, biggameusa.com/Wolverines. It is awesome. CB and I are getting ours in the mail soon, and yeah, it's a big decision on whether or not we should throw it around or keep it in a case or something like that, because it is a beautiful football, and it's not just a football; it's a piece of Michigan history. Let's preview Michigan against Michigan State on Sunday, noon tip at the Jack Breslin Student Events Center. Michigan looking for just its fourth win there since John Beilein took over. He won the classic Zach and Stu game in 2011. Stu Douglas, that shot that kind of changed Michigan basketball forever, not kind of. 2014, when Nick Stauskas goes in there, has a huge game, blows kisses on the way out. And shushing the crowd, all that. Derek Walton, I remember a couple of those and ones, silencing that crowd. And I actually remember a good Michigan contingent being there too. Maybe you could just hear him because of how quiet the people in green were. And then 2018, one of the more epic wins in regular season wins in Michigan basketball recent history. So Wolverines have not won there since Beilein was in charge. He won there 3 times, Juwan Howard 0. Obviously, the Big Ten title implications are unknown because Michigan State, already has a share. If they beat Iowa, they're the outright champions. If they lose to Iowa, then Michigan can go in there with a chance to get a share of the Big Ten championship with Michigan State. But MSU playing great basketball right now. 5-game win streak, could be 6 if they beat Iowa. This 5-game win streak is much more impressive than their 13-game win streak earlier in the year because of who they've beaten. Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin. In that span, they're number 5 in the country on Torvik, second on defense. They are suffocating, as we saw in the first meeting. I don't think Michigan didn't score in the last 5 minutes. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but they dominated the offensive glass, 14 offensive boards last time. Michigan, the half-court offense, when things weren't wide open, run and gun, they were not very good at all, and credit Michigan State for part of that. And then Michigan State hit more shots than they normally do. Banked in, 3. Trey Holloman got hot, did what they need to. Credit them for stepping up. But this will be a tough matchup in what is a very good environment.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if this were not a double-digit Michigan State win, frankly. The way that Michigan State's playing, the way that Michigan's playing, everything might not be on the line like we thought it would be, but to me, it won't matter to Michigan State. Tom Izzo will have those guys fired up. And when Michigan goes in there and wins, they have a badass on this team, like a Zach Novak, like a Nick Stauskas, right? Charles Matthews went in there. He's unflappable in that environment. Mo Wagner, these guys aren't going to be scared by a bunch of douchebags jumping up and down and calling their mother names, right? So in the crowd, these guys are they don't have that on this team, and that's the tough part about this. So it's not going to be pretty. It is what it is. And at the same time, I'll say it again. Yeah, it's tough to lose to your rival twice, but going into this season, if you had predicted that they would be in this position after winning 8 games last year, you take that every day. And there are brighter days to come. Roster was put together in 3 weeks, and now Dusty May has an idea of what it takes to win in the Big Ten. I have full confidence in him that this thing's going to keep going in the right direction. I don't have any confidence in this team to go to Breslin and win.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier, kind of a tale of two different directions that these programs have taken in the last few weeks. Really, that's the night that Michigan beat Purdue at home. Michigan State loses to Indiana, and since then they've been on fire, and they've found that focus. They found, they had their tough patch. They went out to LA, lost the 2 games that Michigan won out there in January. They lost the game to Indiana, and they did what a championship caliber team does. And they've gone out and won 5 really tough games since then. And since that point, Michigan won a game at Ohio State, but really since they played Michigan State, and Dusty May has given them credit for this. I'll give them credit for this. Like, a lot of the things that plagued them in that game, I think you can tip your hat to Michigan State for. They haven't shot the ball very well, but they shot it extremely well from the perimeter that night. Don't feel great about Sunday. I just feel Michigan State's guard play is better. I think they're a little deeper there as well. I think that they have just better athletes, especially with some of their bigs. So to me, I don't know that I foresee a double-digit loss. I think that Michigan is going to go up there, and maybe just playing away from home does take some pressure off, because you have this crowd that will be, listen, Sunday, they're going into Sunday thinking it's a coronation, and maybe it is a coronation to a certain extent. It's their last home game of the year. Tom Izzo and the Spartans have clinched at the very least a share of this title, which is his 11th. It's kind of the perfect time from their perspective for Michigan to come into town, because that's going to be, to them, that's a celebration, and that's a cherry on top on Sunday. Michigan, I think this is where we need to see that toughness step up. We need to see kind of that unflappability, and who knows? I mean, we don't like what we've seen recently, but it'd be kind of funny if that was the game they figured it out and made 11 threes, right? Like, I think they just need to let it fly, play loose, and stop overthinking it. Just go out there and play basketball, and if they do that, I think they'll be in a tough game, but ultimately one that I think Michigan State will win.
Yeah, maybe they make some more shots than they normally do, like Michigan State needed to come in here and win, banking in threes and Trey Holloman getting hot and everything else. It could take a couple outlier performances or just outlier occurrences to pull out a win, like Michigan State got at Chrysler. They're not a good shooting team, but they outplayed Michigan from the 3-point line in that game. Michigan goes 5 of 21 from beyond the arc. They were good from inside the arc. Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden were really their only offense. Michigan guards need to step up in this game, and like you said, Anthony, it's not going to be easy, because those Michigan State guards are as good as it gets defensively. I'd say especially Trey Holloman and Jaden Akins, 2 of the better defensive guards in the Big Ten, defensive players in the Big Ten in general. But still, I mean, this is, if you're a guy, I know Trey Donaldson gets talked about a lot recently for what he's not doing, but I mean, if you're going to be the point guard of a team that is good and in the hunt for a Big Ten championship, which they were and potentially will be on Sunday, then you got to play well in this spot. And the interesting thing about this game is all the talk before the first meeting was, I mean, literally, we're there for a press conference that lasted about 30 minutes. I'd say 90% of the questions had to do with transition defense and defensive rebounding. Now, they did not do a good job on the glass, but the transition defense was excellent against Michigan State last time, even though a lot of those long shots weren't falling. They got to bring that again, but actually it was Michigan that played a lot better when the game was more wide open. So when it slows down, and Michigan State really started to figure out Michigan defense, the zone, even the man, which I thought actually worked pretty well early on in that game. Then that's when some of the threes started coming and all that for Michigan State. But I think if Michigan can play with tempo, that would suit them a little bit better. Of course, it's you want to play with tempo yourself, but you want to slow down their running game, so to speak. But that's going to be an interesting part of this. And if you do hit double-digit threes, it would go a long way to help try to pull this upset.
Yep, that's pretty much it. What's next? We're at 30 minutes and 46 seconds. What do we got? We got
That's
some
right.
football going on?
We absolutely do. So that's Michigan State preview. Michigan certainly with a chance.
I get paid. I get paid by the minute, so we could take this as long as we need to.
And I got a quiche in the oven.
Exactly.
So.
Michigan with a shot there on Sunday. Definitely a chance to win that game. Let's talk about Wink Martindale's comments on the In the Trenches podcast this week with John Jansen, one of the voices of Michigan football, along with Doug Karsh, friend of the program on the radio broadcast. But this podcast, good interview with Wink. I think any interview with Wink is pretty good because of just who he is as a guy. But we'll run through some of his key quotes here from that podcast. The first one on his interest and having interviewed with NFL teams for defensive coordinator jobs earlier this offseason. This is Wink Martindale saying, quote, I said when I came here, this was an exciting time for me. It was different, obviously, going from the NFL back to college, but it would take a lot for me to go back to the NFL. Really, I told Ward and Sharon when I took this job, I would listen to anyone. And I think where I'm at in my career, really, I deserve the right to do that. It was one of those things where if it wasn't perfect, where things weren't perfect anywhere or anything else, I'm going to stay at Michigan because I do love it here. That's not recruiting. That's not anything else. I do love it here. I love the players here. We had a lot of fun, especially towards the end of the year, and I'm looking forward to starting all that over again. I love that, like, there's just no BS with Wink, like him saying, he absolutely deserves to be able to interview with whoever he wants. I never faulted, Michigan's coaches for doing that. Minter obviously had an interview before he came back the next year. Jim Harbaugh with multiple interviews during his tenure at Michigan. And he's back, and I think that the defense should be pretty good.
He told us in this exclusive with the Wolverine in the football preview that, hey, if they back the Briggs truck up, I've already told Ward and Sharon that I would listen, so there were no surprises to us. It's a little surprising to me that he didn't get an offer, I think. And I think he's still clearly got his fastball, right? If you look at what he accomplished at the end of the year last year, and granted, they had some outstanding football players out there, but the way that he leaned on his players too, what do you guys feel comfortable doing? What do you guys want? I like that a lot. It seems like he was relating much more to the college guys at the end of the year, and he said it was just a matter of getting to know each other. But I love the OG. I think he's going to have a great defense this year. Great to have him back. Hope to see him here for 5 to 10 more years. We've been absolutely spoiled, fellas, with the defenses that we've seen in the last 4 years here at Michigan. I want to see that continue. I think we are going to see another very good defense on Wink Martindale's watch in 2025.
Yeah, great to have him back. Again, there wasn't a decision to make for him because he didn't get an offer, which is good because I think that there was. I really feel like he cracked the code. I think obviously late in the year, you kind of had this all hands on deck moment. What felt like to me started with the second half of that Indiana game. But I think when they were, limited in the secondary, they had to dial back the playbook just a little bit, just to run your meat and potato stuff, but do it at a high level, execute it, play fast. And I think they sort of cracked the code there. And now you have these guys who figured it out. They're in the second year of his system because it is slightly different. I know he came from that Baltimore Ravens tree, but Now you can kind of pile back on a little more, and hopefully they're a little bit deeper. I think they are in a few spots. Still have a few question mark spots as well, but the fact that he's back, I just feel like continuity is so important for these defenses, especially running the system that they want to run. So glad to have him back. Glad to. I appreciate the transparency. We get so many canned quotes from college football coaches, and when their agendas might lie elsewhere. I love that Wink will always tell you where he stands, and guess what? He knows if he keeps receipts too. So glad to have him back. Excited to see what the defense looks like moving forward.
Yeah, there was a former coordinator at Michigan who I won't name, who would say a lot or would talk a lot, but wouldn't say a lot with what he was saying. Wink Martindale, yeah, you know exactly where he stands on any topic, and is absolutely transparent there. Talking about his own career. Rayshon Benny, a guy who is going to step into a starting role this year. Wink Martindale says Rayshon Benny goes in for Kenneth Grant at the end of the Ohio State game. Look at the two pass rushes he put on to win the game against Ohio State. He's going to be a fun guy to watch. He knows what he needs to work on, and he knows what it's going to take for him to get to the next level. Of course, Rayshon Benny, Michigan's fifth-year senior defensive tackle, who the deck is cleared for him to be a starter finally after Mason Graham and KG, Kenneth Grant, headed to the NFL. But I think this could be a really big year for him. They've added some more bodies in there through the transfer portal at defensive tackle. Wink said he's going to be fine and thinks they have a good depth on the interior of the defensive line, which is good to hear. It's pre-spring ball, so we'll see. But that was not the case last season. I thought the starters had to play too many snaps. Benny got hurt at one point in the year, which stressed things even more. If they're not going to be as good at the top end in there, but if you can have more depth and keep guys fresh, I think that could be big and help mitigate the losses that are KG and Mason Graham, which are massive.
His strength on the bull rushes against Ohio State, if you go back and watch that game on the last series, right? And then against Alabama, how he stood in there against some really good offensive linemen, strong offensive linemen, and the bull rush there and the way he was handling his gap responsibilities. This guy has a chance to be an all Big Ten first team player. And that is exactly what it takes to win with defense at this level, is great defensive line play. So he is not Mason Graham. There will not be another Mason Graham here for a long, long time. Don't care what anybody says. He's the best interior defensive lineman that I've ever seen at Michigan. And I don't think there's a close second, maybe Mark Messner. And Mark Messner was a different type of player. He was quicker, smaller. There were times that he could be blocked when you could get your hands on him. Mason Graham was a unicorn. So, but Rayshon Benny can be a Kenneth Grant type defensive lineman here, in my opinion. A different style. He's not as big, but he can have that same type of impact. And then if you get a couple guys next to him, we saw them play well in the Alabama game. He can be that guy to really be the anchor of a defensive line that has great success here. So excited that he's getting his opportunity. Excited that Wink Martindale is back to coach him. And I love good defensive football, guys. Hate bad defensive football, and I hate that, remember the 67-65 game with Illinois in the Rich Rod era. Remember when they put it on ESPN or Big Ten classics, like classic victories. I'm like, flush that shit down the toilet. That was terrible. Don't ever show that again. That it should not be in your vault, other than how not to do things. But this defense should be good, and Rayshon Benny's going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, that game was more of like a Big 12 classic than a
Yes.
Big 10 classic. So,
Garbage.
I have super high hopes for Rayshon Benny. He's one of those guys that it'll be his fifth year, and yet we haven't, outside of him playing the role he has, it feels like his best football can still be ahead of him because of the guys that he's played behind. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Chris Jenkins, Cam Good. The names go on and on. So, yeah, he's going to be the anchor. He's going to be what Don Brown used to call the tip of the spear. And I'm excited to see how he develops. I think whenever we talk to him, he's a very matter-of-fact guy. Doesn't give you a lot of BS, but I think on the field, he's someone that's a net positive for them. And hopefully that rotation around him is going to be much better. Excited to see what we hear about those guys in spring ball coming up. But clearly, when you have him headlining it and then you make the investment that you did with guys like Trey Williams and Damon Payne coming in, feel pretty good about not just Benny, but also that you can kind of go back to rotating that spot, similar to the hockey line style that they had a couple years ago.
Think of the bullet that Rayshon Benny dodged by not sticking with his initial commitment. He's won a lot of games here. He's going to help these guys this season. Was, of course, committed to a different Big Ten school, Michigan State, before he flipped on signing day. Jayshawn Barham may play some edge this year for Michigan. Wink Martindale says not as much maybe as a full-time switch, maybe at times. He said, I think we did last year with him as well. I think what we need to do for him is practice him more on the edge, more than we did last season, but still use him in the same ways that we have. And it all depends on how some of these young linebackers came along to the inside guys, because Brian Jean Mary has done a heck of a job changing that room around. The talent we brought in is going to be fun to watch for years to come. Yeah, you can't just move him if you don't have another guy that could play at that level. Jimmy Rolder's one of them, but they seem to like to rotate three. That would take Barham out of that rotation. And we don't know how good he is as an edge rusher anyway. He did line up there for 76 snaps last year. I would guess about 65 of them came on third down situations when he was still technically the inside linebacker, but was lined up on the line of scrimmage to blitz and then either backed out or came. But it's an unknown, worth exploring, but doesn't seem like a full-time solution or anything. And some of those young guys, talented guys like Nathaniel Owusu Boateng are still going to be very young. So this year might be a time when you still need Jayshawn on the inside.
Yeah, and that was overblown. It's like, oh, he's moving positions. No, he's not, and he never was. He was going to be given more of a look there, and Wink Martindale pretty much shot that down at bowl practices. He goes, yeah, we'll give him a look and give him some more reps there, but he's been doing it already, so it's not really a big deal. That's the way I look at it. I do think he has a skill set to get to the quarterback. He's got to show better discipline when he gets there sometimes and not be hitting guys late and pulling up at times. So, but if he does that, I think he's got the ability to really provide something in pass rush from that position on occasion.
Yeah. Again, one of the strengths of them going to that Ravens style of defense they did, gosh, it's, 5 years ago at this point that they made that switch, was it gives you the ability to be multiple in the looks that you give on the field. So when you have a guy like a Jayshawn Barham who, if you make a quick substitution, you can kind of throw him down at the edge. You can, drop him back as a linebacker, whatever it is. Like that versatility, that can be pretty big, especially when you have these teams that go tempo. Remember a couple years ago when they kind of moved Mike Barrett from safety back to linebacker under Mike McDonald after they had some substitution issues in that Michigan State game. And, guys that can be those versatile type of chess pieces, in addition to really good football players. And I think he really did come on the second half of the year and played his best football. It's exciting. I think, again, it always just felt overblown because, who do you stick next to Ernest Hausman as the starter if it's not Jayshawn Barham? I know I think highly of Jimmy Rolder, but I think he's kind of perfect for what his role has been. So the versatility is great. Interested to see how they use him, and hey, we'll see if you can't get to the passer a little more.
And probably the most interesting, revealing thing that Wink Martindale said had to do with Rod Moore, Michigan's safety, coming back for his 5th season. He said it's going to be wait and see on him, how fast he can come back. I don't think he's run in 14 months. That's a long time to be off. It's going to be interesting to see. He's a leader. He also got us a penalty on the sidelines during Ohio State, so he was in the game, I guess. Is the best way to, or into the game, I guess, is the best way to say it. He's a great guy. We're looking forward to him coming back on his terms when he's ready to go. Now, it hasn't been 14 months since he ran because he got injured last March, and it's March 6th right now, but it's been a while, apparently, that he hasn't started running yet. That's a bit concerning, and I wonder what his status will be for spring football. At the same time, when Rod Moore gets healthy or 100%, whenever that is, he's going to add a big boost. And you did add some safety depth the last 2 off seasons. So you could absorb this loss. But like we said, we said this a year ago when he got hurt. It's not just like, oh yeah, a number there, or it stresses your depth or this or that. This is a game-changing player. So if he's not healthy, that, it's less than encouraging, but it's still very early and a long time to go before the season.
I think when he says he's not running, he's not sprinting, he's not cutting. I think he's doing some light running from what we've heard. So that's a little bit different, obviously, than going full bore. But at the same time, Sharon Moore did tell one of our guys, Pete Nakos, that he expected Rod Moore back by 200% by the summer. And I trust him. I trust the trainers, and I trust Rod Moore to know what's best for his body. They need him out there. He's going to be an outstanding football player here in his last year, and an outstanding quarterback, more importantly, for that defense. So need him on the field. I expect him back, and excited to see him and what he can do out there. It's just going to make that defense even better.
I can't wait to see it. I mean, you're dropping an all-American caliber guy back into your secondary. And one of the bigger questions, and I'm actually writing something on this right now, is where's he going to fit in that secondary? Do you move him down to nickel and he kind of finds that Mikey Sainer still sort of role on that defense as sort of the quarterback on the back end? Or is he too good a safety to move him from that role that he was in already? Go back every once in a while, I feel like almost once a month, I go back and watch that Rose Bowl, and that might be, one of the best games he ever put on tape at Michigan, at least to this point. So super impressive stuff from Rod Moore. But yeah, he's a captain. He's an all-American type of player. And I think that if he comes back, gosh, let's just say, obviously you want him to make a full recovery, but if he's even just a few ticks away from what he was, I think that's going to be a huge boost for them.
Mm-hmm. And you have two captains back in general, Max Bredesen and Rod Moore. You don't often have that for a full offseason, two guys that have already been captains on your team. So he's already added a lot there. But you just for him personally, like you just want him to get up back on that field. So, doesn't sound like when you heard Summer from Sharon Moore in that interview, it was like, okay, is that a summer like when Aiden Hutchinson probably could have gone in spring ball, but they held him out before 2021, or is that he needs until the summer? Sounds like the latter, but even then, you still have some time to get up to speed, because 2 years ago, Rod Moore missed first couple games of the season and then wasn't really himself the majority of the way, and then started to play incredible football, as you mentioned, Anthony, with the Rose Bowl, with the Ohio State game before that. So this could be earlier than that. And that could help. But that's Wink Martindale, some of his key quotes there on the In the Trenches podcast with John Jansen. That's going to be our show for this week. Remember to like this video if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, head to thewolverine.com. You can use the promo code UM1 right now for 2 months of access for just $1. And we're brought to you by the 2025 official Michigan Jordan Fly Elite Football, which is not just a football. You can get yours today at biggameusa.com/Wolverines. That is our show for today, and we will see everyone next time.